Hey everyone, welcome to the 7th devlog for my game, Proelium. So a lot of work went into the game this week, primarily focusing on sounds and just visual effects, just trying to improve the general feel of the game. So yeah, and also a lot of work went into this devlog. I'm going to try and split it up by days. I didn't plan on doing this, so it might be a bit scuffed the first time around, but I guarantee you in the coming weeks it'll be much better quality devlogs now that school is beginning to end. So yeah, like I said, during this week I worked on sounds and effects, so let's just jump right into it. So today was Monday, and my goal for the day was to try and record as many sounds for the game as possible. So the first thing I decided to do was go into my notebook and basically write down every sound I thought I would possibly need to add. That way I'd have a way of keeping track of what I've already implemented and, what was already in the game. So the way this would work was I would just write down, a certain section, like say entities or resources, and then under that I would write each type I would need and the amount of that I need. So for something like a footstep, I would need 3 different variants. That way I would mix it up when the player is actually walking. So that's why I put a times 3 next to the footstep sounds. And I think the system ultimately worked out for me in the end. I also, while we're on Monday's topic, want to discuss sort of the process I went through to record the sounds. So one thing to note is that, like I said with this project, I want to do everything myself, so I don't actually own really good recording gear for sound effects, so I actually had to use my phone and try and record sounds. So let's talk about the process. So the way it would work is I would find something that would make a sound that would be related to what I sort of had in mind. So for something like footsteps, I would find a patch of grass in my backyard, and the way I would do it is I would set up my phone and I would just make, I would stomp on the ground and hopefully would get a sound effect from that. And so after I recorded a sound effect in that sort of way, I would basically upload it to Google Drive, and then from there I would download it onto my computer, and then I would edit the sound in a software I use called Shotcut. Now from here, I essentially just export the final version of the sound into the game with a certain name, and then I can add it to whatever requires that sound, and then I'll test out the sound, and essentially I just need to edit the sound to get it to work within the game. And that is pretty much the process I went through with every single sound in the game. Now, took a very long time, and that's probably why it took about 2 weeks to finish all the sounds in the game, because it's a very long process to get a sound, and it just takes a lot of work. But yeah, for just Monday, all I did was record sounds, and I didn't actually implement them into the game. I think I recorded a good 25 sounds, and then that was the conclusion to Monday's work. So on Tuesday, I had less of a sound effect and visual effect focus, and I actually focused on improving some of the gameplay aspects and fixing quite a few bugs. So essentially what I did was I played through a good portion of the game and I figured out a load of bugs that needed to be fixed. Now, I fix a lot more things on Wednesday, but for Tuesday I do fix a lot of more essential, bigger things. Two massive things that I did on that day was I actually rewrote the entire system for both resource mining and collecting, as well as the object fader. Now for the resource mining system, I essentially rewrote it with about a third of the code, and it works probably 5 times better. So prior to this update, essentially when the player would hit a resource, it would hit the object multiple times and do a lot of damage to it. Obviously this was not the intended effect, but now when I hit any object, it simply hits it once, and that's really what I was going for. Now the object fader is a system used by the trees so that they fade out, at least the leaves do, when the player walks under them. And the issue I was having was the old system for this was very confusing, and it had a lot of issues with it, especially when it comes to, say, multiplayer. So I rewrote the entire system from the ground up. It wasn't actually that hard at all, and it actually works a lot better, and it's much more customizable. So some lesser things that I did on Tuesday was quite a few resprites actually to some of the boss stuff and actual resources and items. And I also gave the boss's arrow rather, a shoot effect, so it'll have a little trail after it. And I also tried to rework the size of the goblin boss health bar. So it wasn't that huge of a day, but overall that's what I did for Tuesday, so let's move on to Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday was the day that I easily did the most work by far over the entirety of the week. Because on Wednesday I probably did around 40 to 50 bug fixes slash changes. And basically what I did was I began by playing through the entirety of the game. And as I went along, I had a row of sticky notes that I kept writing things down on. And then afterwards, I went through and fixed a ton of the bugs, all kinds of stuff ranging from player inventory to entity movement. And as you can see by the overlaid footage, there is tons upon tons of changes I made. Now, Wednesday is going to be more of a quick day when I talk about it now because there's so many things that there's not really a ton of major things to be covered. It's more of minor back-end and bug fixes and visual issues that you wouldn't have noticed anyways. So yeah, though I did a ton on Wednesday, there's not a lot of stuff to show for the devlog only because it's not that interesting and it's really not that impacting on the game. Okay, so now that we've covered Wednesday, we're actually going to move on to Friday and include the weekend with that because I actually did not do any work on Thursday. So let's move to that. So for Friday and the weekend, I essentially was just finishing up all the sound work. Now, the reason why I included it all into one little section is because, like I said, it was all just sound work and there wasn't really anything good to separate it with. Now, for this, I essentially recorded the rest of the sounds and tried to edit them and implement. This took a lot of time, but in the end, I ended up getting it done. Now, there's one big challenge that I face when developing sounds for the game. Essentially, in the game, each biome has its own day and night track that'll play depending on what time of day it is and what biome you're in. The issue I face with this is not that the soundtrack doesn't sound good, but that I just can't really record sounds for each individual biome. Places like a desert or the volcanic plains biome, I just don't know really how to record an ambient soundtrack for that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut sort of the biome ambience out of the game completely. Just to give you an idea of what it was like, essentially if you were to walk into the meadow biome or just sort of the plains biome, a little, forest with birds chirping and everything would sort of fade in from the background. And when you cross into another biome, it would fade out that current track and it would start playing the new track. Now, these soundtracks sounded completely fine. I recorded them myself. They sounded like you were in a forest, and it does make the game feel more alive, but with my inability to record, enough tracks for every biome, I felt like I should just cut it out. So I wanted to let you know that just because the game kind of feels a bit quiet at the minute, and that'll probably change in the future, but that's why. So now, I'm going to show you some gameplay with the actual sounds all implemented into the game, so let's see it. Okay, so we're now in game as you can see, and I'm going to be showing off sort of the sound effects and a little bit of the back-end information. So the first thing you'll notice is when we take a step here, it obviously makes a sound that's related to the sand tile because we're standing on a sand tile. So look, there's a slime. But yeah, you can see it makes the sand sound. As soon as I enter grass, we switch immediately over to the grass step sound effects. So the way this works is that each tile essentially, once you enter it, it assigns the new footstep sounds that are assigned to that specific tile to your player, so it'll know which ones to play, and it'll pick a random one out of the list that is assigned to the tile. So, for instance, the sand has 3 different sounds, which you'll hear here. And same with grass. And yeah, so that's how the tiles sound, like the footstep sounds work. Now, if we mine resources here, there's a new pickup sound and also a break sound. Now, obviously, since I'm using the debug hammer, I pretty much one-shot any object. However, in normal gameplay, everything has a hit sound and a break sound, so 2 separate sounds for that material. That way, it's obviously not the same, because when you're hitting a tree, you want it to sound different than when you're breaking a tree. So there's a slime sound. If I pick up this axe here, you'll notice the hit sound and the break sound are obviously very different, and that makes sense. And things like rocks have this. Anything that's foliage based has the same sound effects, so things like cactuses sound the same as mushrooms, and I don't think that players will really notice that or really care, and I think that makes it easier for me down the line. Also, there's a sort of a, punch sound. Now, there is a sound for swinging, except I forgot to add it to this build, so you won't be seeing that, but just know that there is. Obviously, this is both grass, so it's going to stay the same. Mine some iron, it has that sound effect. So overall, everything has a sound effect in the game. Now, I'm going to quickly go over to a volcanic plains, and because there's quite a few different effects there that I need to show off. Okay, so I'm now in the volcanic plains biome, or at least next to it, and I just want to show off a few things here. Stone footstep sounds, as you can hear, and then also these guys got a complete revamp. They have an ambient soundtrack because technically they are on fire, so that's sort of the sound they have. And they'll fire their projectile, which has a sound effect and better lighting. It also has a particle effect on collision. as you can see. If I go and hit this guy, he'll make a new sound. As you can hear there, also has a very cool particle effect in my opinion. It's sort of a fire that moves outwards. And I actually just died. So when you enter this biome, essentially what will happen is a particle effect will start to appear, as you can see here and around the screen. And now biomes can have particle effects like specific to their biome or any sort of effect that they need. And upon leaving this, you'll notice that this sort of slowly fades away from your screen, and yeah, you can see it dissipated and it was a smooth transition out of that. And I can add this to any biome, I just have only added it to Volcanic Plains so far. And yeah, additional changes are for the boss. The boss had a lot of revamping to do with the sound effects and visual effects. However, just for now, I'm not going to show it off, just because the boss isn't completely done yet, but when it is, I will definitely show that off. Okay, on Tuesday, it was my final day of work, pretty much, and I wanted to focus on revamping the menus for the game. Now, we're getting to the end of pre-alpha 0.3, so I really wanted to give it sort of a fresh look, and since all the menus had pretty much been blank and were really lacking, I decided I would rework all the main menu and character select screens and backgrounds. So essentially what I did is, on each menu, I just gave it a fresh look. I tried to make it look like a biome that's in the game for each different type of screen. So I'm going to quickly show that off, and then we'll move on to basically the conclusion for this video. Okay, so you can see we're on the main menu here, completely revamped. So let's just go over it. So as you can see, the main menu is going to be the meadow biome, and I think this main menu looks really nice, honestly. And I think it'll make the the overall game look very good, especially from a tester's perspective. So when you open up the game, you obviously have the logo here, the version number. We're getting to the end of this number here, and we'll move on to 0.4. But for now, still on 0.3. But yeah, you can see this. Also, the buttons are now in a row down here, and it has like a little outline around the edge and a bigger outline here. Also, button press sound has been implemented. I decided to cut the hover sound, or not do a hover sound rather, because I felt like it would get really annoying. So you'll hear here a little click sound. I think it sounds okay. So now we're on this menu screen. As you can see, the background is a desert, which also looks pretty nice in my opinion. I didn't do much visual changes to the actual menu portion. More of the background on the rest of these. The main menu is really the main one I reworked, but you can see obviously 3 characters here I've been playing quite a bit on my different characters for testing, because they all have different armor types on. But yeah, once you select a character, we'll go with this guy because he has the best armor. Now you're on here, you can see some of the test worlds, and as you can see in the background, we have the sort of the plains biome that has the slime and the iron. So yeah, this is what the select a world screen looks like, but all the multiplayer screens got a complete rework, so let's take a look at those. So once I choose my character here, we'll see all the new sort of multiplayer, screens and such. So choose a character. Now for the selection screen, you have a volcanic plains, which has all the heat spirits and their projectiles, which I think looks pretty cool. Especially just to show off different parts of the game and to show the user what is part of the game. Obviously this has been reworked before. If we could select either, it goes to the same screen. Select a world, and then after that you'll notice this. So this is a pretty cool background. I also think it's the strange clearing, obviously, and I chose to do it at nighttime so you can see the lanterns are glowing. So as you can see, overall, on Tuesday I just worked on reworking the menu, just adding little backgrounds and nice little touches to make the game feel a little bit more polished. And yeah, that pretty much covers the entire set of work I did over this 2 weeks, and now let's move on to sort of the conclusion. So overall, this week's goal was to add visual effects, sound effects, and all of the sort, and I think that overall, I did definitely achieve this, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. Now, I know this devlog was a little bit all over the place. It was kind of a last-second thing, and I knew I wanted to put more work into my devlogs than previous ones, so this is sort of the start to that. Now, in future devlogs, I'll make sure to record the footage during the week so we can talk about things I'm going to do and then how I do them. So day to day, I'll do that on a lot better of a scale. So yeah. Anyways, I want to thank you guys again for all the support on my latest videos, lots of comments, lots of new subscribers, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.